All right, y'all, I did you a favor. I held every holiday conversation up until November, but November is here. It is time for us to talk holidays in divorced and separated houses. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica, and today's episode is all about the holidays, how to handle the holidays. I love the holidays. It is my favorite season of the year. In my life, it was Christmas. Christmas is my favorite, absolute favorite. To me, it's almost like the only holiday that needs to be celebrated all year. And divorce kicked my ass and kind of robbed me of that joy for a lot of years. I mean, divorce robbed me of a lot of that joy 365 days a year. It took work and focus to build the happiness back into my life because I was hurting and I was grieving, and so many things had to be let go of. And so to get to the point of the year where it's the holiday season, the thing that no matter what, November and December had always brought me joy. Even in college when I worked in a mall, the holiday was my favorite season because it was so busy and you helped so many people find things and the sales were so big and everything was just amazing. I mean, I love November and December. So it was really hard for me to get to that part of the year and find that I couldn't just naturally find the joy. I didn't want to listen to holiday music. I didn't want to decorate a tree. I didn't want to make cookies. I really was depressed on the season of the holiday. And I worried that I was never going to be able to get it back. I worried that it was going to impact my son. The holidays had always been so magical for me. My only focus and goal since he had been born was to create and share that same magic. As an adult, I still believe in that magic. I think that that's part of what's just missing in our day-to-day life, the magic of the unknown, of the surprise and delight, the magic of how good it feels to be nice to somebody else with no strings attached. I was reading a long time ago, there was a post or a pin about how to tell your child about the magic of Christmas. So if there are any children in the room, you need to put this in your ears or pause it. Let me give you a hot second. Anywho, the post talked about how to let your children know the truth about Santa. And I was researching because eventually we were going to have to be at this point, and I was dreading it because I loved the fact that there was so much magic still believed in. And this post, what it talked about was instead of saying, it's not true, it was all a lie. Your parents are Santa, right? Instead of that lie, you instead focused on what I feel is really true about the holidays, and that's that the magic of Santa or whatever spirit you want to believe in is the idea of how good it feels to give with no expectation of thanks. To give something not because you're going to get something back, not because you're going to get appreciation back, not because you're even going to get acknowledgement, but the joy of truly just surprising someone and seeing how good it feels to give. And that's what I loved about that post. It talked about when your children get old enough, you invite them in to be part of that. They get to carry on the tradition. It's not just that, oh, it was a lie, now your parents do it. It's, hey, now you're old enough to keep the secret, to keep the magic alive. And part of that is how good it feels to give, how good it feels to just see somebody else be happy for the sake of doing something nice for somebody else. Anyways, I digress a little bit because I do love this topic. But it brings us back to why we're here chatting today. because the holidays should be a time filled with happiness. And the reality is that for a lot of people, they're not. Whether or not you're married or divorced, the holidays bring a lot of stress. I think year after year, keeping up with the Joneses, chasing the inflation and the costs. I remember being a kid and feeling jealousy when I learned that one of the other girls in my grade, their grandparents gave each kid $500. And now back in the 90s, that was an exorbitant amount of money. Remember that I could like fill up my gas tank for $5 for the week. Uh, and so the fact that they were being given that much money and we didn't have that much money, we were healthy middle class. I didn't want for any of the basics, but I still remember it feeling so unfair at the holidays, you know? And then you add divorce or separation into it where it hits and triggers all of our money sense of security and issues. Even if you're working, as I've shared, my ex and I, we both worked full time. And yet, when we got divorced, I still was worried about how I was going to continue to pay for the lifestyle we had built because the lifestyle we had built was built upon two salaries. It's a very real fear. It's a very real thing that you have to be able to work through in your divorce. And it only gets exasperated during the holidays because we're spending so much money. So, this is one of the big things. This episode is focused on highlighting and bringing awareness to the areas that you want to start to think about, that you want to be ready for. Budgets and money is one of them. Now, half of this will be working through your own internal childhood wounds around what it means to truly treat your children. They really don't care how much money you spend on them. And if they do, that's probably a red flag that there's something in their core values that needs a little fine tuning. But kids don't typically really understand the value of money, but they do understand the value of time and intention. And so get clear. What is a realistic budget for you this winter to spend on your kids for gifting or events or other things that are going on? I always set a budget. Did I stick to the budget? Not 100%, but it at least gave me some guardrails. It gave me an estimate to start with. I feel like there's always impulse purchases. Something else goes on sale, something you see that you didn't expect, something that you think that they'd really like. Fine, but at least the core majority of it, set a budget for it. Don't let the financial worries overwhelm your ability to give your kids the gift of time and to be present. I mean, one of the other things that I wish we would have done differently is the conversation around Santa. When you live in one house, there's only one place Santa visits. Well, now your kid's got two houses. So does Santa visit both houses? Does Santa only visit the house where the child is at? What's the plan? We didn't have a plan. I just assumed Santa only visited the house where the child was at. Lo and behold, Santa visited the other house when the child wasn't there because that family was just so excited to have a little kid who believed in Santa back in the mix. That created a lot of chaos, and the magic of Santa ended a little sooner than I had wanted it to because one side decided to just rip the band-aid off and tell the kid it wasn't real. That was some fun backpedaling that had to happen. But these are real conversations that you don't have to think about when you're married, but you do have to think about when you're divorced. The other big area to start thinking about are those family traditions. What do you want to stay? What are you ready to let go of? There were a lot of things that were always part of our holidays just because they were always part of our holidays. It's the way we'd always done things. And divorce gave me the permission slip to ask myself if I really liked what we were doing. Is that what I want to do? Is that where I want to spend my time? Is that where I want to spend my energy? Is that what I want to invest my money in? What's important? It also gave me the opportunity to build new traditions. We had always really been locked into spending the holidays with family and traveling to family. We didn't have any family in town. So holidays always required us to go somewhere. And now that we were divorced, did I want to do that? Or do I want to go somewhere else? I went to the mountains in Colorado for one of my Christmases. I've never done that. It was delightful. I want to go to the beach for a holiday. I've never done that as well. I do like snow. during the holidays, so I don't think I'll do a beachy Christmas every year, but it's nice to be able to experience something different. And the key around that is when you start to experiment with something that's different, really look at it. Did you like it? Did it fulfill the need or the wish that you were hoping it did? Did it bring you all the joy? If it didn't, is it something that needs to be tweaked or is it something that you want to not bring back the next years? The same holds true for maybe the things that you have always loved, but right now you just don't have the capacity for. It's okay to pause some of those things. For me, that was baking cookies. I mean, I used to pretend to host a baking class probably since like fourth grade. My neighbor would come over, my best friend, my bestie would come over, and we would set up the kitchen like we were in a cooking show. And we would talk to a fake camera and we would do all these cookie bakings. And we had it's a Betty Crocker, it's a red cover, but it's like the only Christmas cookie book you'll ever need. Anyways, we picked out cookies every year. It was always my thing. I loved it for many reasons. One, it's creative yet structured. It allowed me to just fall into a flow. It was something that other people loved, being able to bring cookies to the office or to friends' houses. It felt really good, especially in an era when most of us were working and raising kids and we're not staying home to bake. It just felt really good in a lot of different ways. And so when I started moving through my separation and divorce, I just was exhausted. I was exhausted and I didn't have the energy to be able to do it. And that weighed so heavy on me for a lot of years. I put a lot of unnecessary pressure on myself to continue traditions that overall, skipping them for a few years, it didn't ruin anybody's Christmas. Probably saved us because we had a lot less cookies that we needed to eat in the house. There was always enough cookies. There was always enough dessert. I didn't have to be held responsible by myself to making more. It's okay to pause some of those traditions until you have enough energy to be able to pick them back up. And that to me leads us right to the next awareness. Give yourself grace. You are going through a lot mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of those things take a toll on the amount of energy we have. They are stressful things, and stress requires us to need more sleep. And most likely, if you're really stressed, you're probably not sleeping that well. I know I woke up in the middle of the night at about the same time, between like 2 and 3, almost for 7 years. For 7 years, I never got a full night's rest. It was exhausting, but it was my norm. Know that as we move closer to the holidays, holidays are always stressful. We have more requests and more things and more things and more things, and you already have a full plate. So it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, maybe I'll show up for that holiday party. I got to let you know the day of because I really don't know what I'm going to be feeling like. It's okay to say, yes, you're going to go and then change your mind the same day. It's okay to say, this year we're not baking Christmas cookies from scratch. I broke down and I bought one of those tubes of sugar cookies that, like, in my world, those are like virtually illegal in my house. We make cookies and pie crust and everything from scratch. And I bought fake sugar cookies. And that was fine because guess what? It was the time that I spent with my son, not the actual cookies. He had a blast. I think he actually liked those cookies more than the other ones. So it's okay to prioritize the space that you're going to need, because here's the last thing you need to be aware of as we move into the holiday season. You are going to grieve the loss of things that are no longer. You are in a place of transition. It means that the ways that your holidays used to run, those have to be let go in order to create and move forward into something new. And that's why I'm saying, get real clear. What do you love about holidays of the past and what do you not? Try to keep those things that you love, test them out again. Do they still fulfill the same need, or have you and the family evolved and changed? And give yourself enough time to grieve the loss of the things that are definitely over. Sometimes the grief catches us so off guard because overall they weren't things that we truly, truly loved. They just were pieces of who we were in the past. And I remember how much that awareness surprised me when I first came to it. It came up because I was crying over the loss of some of the standard gatherings of my former in-laws. And I remember I was so worked up. I was so upset. I couldn't believe that I wasn't allowed to attend or get the invite or get a card. I don't even remember the specifics of it, but I was upset that I was no longer included. My mind had created all sorts of stories and why I was justified and why I was right and why I shouldn't be the one who just gets kicked out because of this. And then I asked myself, but did you actually like it when you were married to him? And the answer was no. The answer was these were things that were traditions, and there were absolutely pieces that I really enjoyed and I really missed. But when I looked at them as individual pieces in time, did I love the time that was spent there? No, I didn't. I didn't always love, maybe it was the food or the conversation or the watching the football. I don't even know because it's been so many years. But I just remember being like, oh, you didn't actually like what was happening in the present moment. What you liked was the concept of a holiday gathering. What you liked was the hope that it was going to create this feeling inside of you. But the reality was it hadn't. I still had to grieve that. I still cried it out and journaled it out and wrote it out and tapped it out. I cannot stress enough bilateral stimulation, some sort of tapping to help move through your body. The grief sucked. And the more that I started to look at the grief, the faster I processed it. Did it still hurt? Yes, but something that maybe would have sent me spiraling for days now sent me spiraling for an hour. And now, today, I can say it probably sends me spiraling for 5 minutes before I can right myself. I can sift and sort through the thoughts in my mind to figure out whether or not the pain that my mind is trying to create, is it valid? Is it real? No, it rarely is. So the holidays can be a really beautiful time. Give them time to get back to it. It is a-okay if they're just kind of meh for a few years. You are learning how to rewrite and recreate every aspect of your life. The finances, the interactions, the support systems, the letting go of the past, the moving into the future. So if you're looking at this holiday, if this is one of your first holidays and you're not looking forward to it, that's okay. That's okay. A challenge for you is don't sit in it longer than you need to. Find a tiny thing that does make you happy, even if it's just one thing each week. One thing each week is better than none. And the more you create this purposeful focus on looking at the good things that are coming instead of the things that you have to let go of, the faster they can shift, the faster they can fill in. There were things I thought I would never get back. The holidays had been really tainted for me. And I was so burnt out and sad and filled with depression and anxiety and overwhelm and all the things. I couldn't find a happy space for it for a lot of years. And in those years, I did as best I could. We got a tree up, but it was little. We got cookies, but they were store-bought. We had presents, but maybe I had fewer presents for those first few years. There were changes. I would tell you, I don't think my son has ever noticed a real difference. There isn't a year where he's like, oh, remember how bad that Christmas was? It's not the case because every year I did the best that I could. I gave myself space to grieve and heal and feel the things that I needed to feel. I gave myself permission to say no, to turn down invitations, or to say no. Like I stopped going to my holiday gatherings with my family because I came home sadder than when I went. no shade, no blame on my family. This was an internal thing I was working through on whether or not I felt like I belonged. It wasn't what they were doing, it was how I felt. And I just knew that it was not where I needed to be for those years. So I said no. Yes, I pissed people off. Yes, it hurt some people's feelings because they didn't understand why. And I did my best to explain where I was coming from. And just like I was owning my own issues with being there, I turned it over for them to own theirs. We cannot make everyone happy and still take care of ourselves. It's kind of how we wound up in this mess in the first place. When we prioritized everyone else's needs over our own, we became so depleted and run down and lost, we didn't even know who we were anymore. So give yourself extra grace this holiday. If you need more help, I would love to have you over in the holiday heart to heart. It is pre-recorded. You listen to it just like a podcast. It walks you through each of these topics more in depth to teach you how to get through them. So it's going to give you techniques that you can use when the grief hits. It's going to give you journaling prompts to help you release the pieces that are stuck. It's going to give you some reflection points for you to be able to start to piece together what your new holiday looks like. And again, it's available for you to play on demand by topic. So if you're looking for more information or more support on how to navigate your holidays, the link is in the show notes. You can also find more details on the crazyexwivesclub.com. Until then, I wish you a holiday season that helps your heart heal in whatever form that needs to be and however that looks. I hope that you find that moment where you do feel at peace with exactly where your life is leading you. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're listening in every week. I'm here to support you. So feel free to send in a message or request if there's something you'd like us to work through together. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.